Hi, welcome to another edition of Conversations on Hope. I'm Janna. I am so excited to have my guest here today. I've known her for a long time and started reading her blog and her social media posts, and she has a really interesting journey and story, and I'm just so humbled and privileged that she said yes to the program. So I wanted to introduce my friend Denise Druce. And thank you so much for being here and sharing your story with us.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me. It's great to be here with you.
Thank you. So Denise, 8 or 9 years ago, you started training yoga teachers.
Yes.
Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
And tell us a little bit about this program, because they have to earn so many hours to become certified. And a lot of those hours come in a volunteer basis. So tell us a little bit about how that sort of started.
Yeah, so I really believe if you want to learn something, you should teach it. And a lot of yoga teacher trainings don't let you teach until you've graduated with your 200 hours. I feel like that's a little bit backwards, so I get my folks teaching as soon as possible. And that's one of the things I suggest to them is find a group of people who don't already have access to yoga and create something. So my students are teaching in schools and hospitals and corporations, jails, and they're all getting really great experience where the expectation is a little bit lower. And then they get practice and they get better as they go.
And then you had an interesting situation happen where, you know, you kind of preach, if you want to know where to heal, which you're teaching your students this, go to your wounds. And that sort of led you on a journey, probably within the last 2 years or a year and a half.
Yes, exactly.
That sort of kind of changed you a little.
Yeah.
It's a remarkable story of what you're doing.
Yeah, so that was taught to me by a teacher I respect a great deal. Her name is Shawn Corn, and she says that if you really want to know where you're supposed to be serving, go to where your pain is in your life. And my father was an alcoholic the whole time I was growing up, and so I have always been serving in addiction communities, and that was really a good place for me to be. But it dawned on me at one point, like I think I woke up in the middle of the night one time and realized my real pain was in the prison system. My father spent over his life 15 years in prison. And I just realized like that was such a dark place for me, visiting there when I was a teenager. And that I just had the realization like, oh my gosh, I need to go back there. And so it's interesting when something is meant to be, it's easy, I think. And I sent one email, and within a day the answer was yes, and doors started opening. And so now we're finishing a teacher training program inside the women's prison. Yeah. Amazing. Yeah.
We'll go into that in a little bit, but I wanted to see, when you're working with these women, you've worked with 10 are in your class, and some of them have graduated.
Actually, no, one of them will graduate this Thursday, and she will actually be our first person to graduate. 5 of the 10 have been released from prison.
Okay.
And so once they get out of prison, then the invitation is open for them to continue their training with us on the outside. And so far, she's the only one that's been able to figure that out, because as you can imagine, getting a job, finding a place to live, getting a car, parole officers, they have so much to deal with on the outside that the last thing they have time for is to jump back into teacher training. Right. So, but yeah, we have 2 that will start up again with us in January, and our first graduate happens this Thursday.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that first day, when you walked in there and you were facing this pain of the past that you had. Tell us a little bit about that and the journey getting to know these women and how it's changed you, how it's changed them.
That's so big. How much time do you have to condense it? My father first went into prison when I was 13, and that's already a really hard age for kids. Yes. And so I remember one thing is that I was really embarrassed about him. what got him into prison was in the news, and I just felt like everyone judged me for that. So I was carrying all of that, and then also just visiting him as a teenager, it just felt, I don't know, I guess I felt sometimes like I was on display among all of those men, and I was scared. So all of that resurfaced for me the first time I went down there and like literally drove into the parking lot. We did a training beforehand, so I thought I knew what to expect, but didn't. When those doors started to open, those doors that I had walked through before and then closed behind me, I almost turned around and left. I just froze. It was a really visceral experience. But then, you know, I got into this big gymnasium, and the women there are so amazing. They've painted murals all around the walls of like positive sayings and encouraging quotes. And they came in one by one, and just, you know, we started this yoga class, and I just realized they're just like you and me. Like they look like you and me. They're no different. And it got easy from there.
And how did you see them changing, or did you see a change in them? Did they start to understand themselves a little better? Because I know that yoga is, you have to be very present, very mindful to practice yoga.
Yeah.
It teaches you that. How did you start seeing some changes in them as a result of them participating in this program?
You know, I feel like we started out with 10 really remarkable women. They were hand-selected as people who would have interest in this, who would stay committed to this. So I really feel like we just got some really remarkable women in our program to begin with. So I don't want to take any credit for who they are, but what I do think yoga provides for people in general and for these women is maybe for the first time in their lives they felt like they were seen, truly seen for who they are, because I don't know what they did to get in there, and I don't ask, and I don't want to know. And that's really unusual, and they verbalize that back to us, that in here you're known for what you did. So you're a murderer, you're a rapist, you're a thief, and if you view yourself as that and everyone views you as that label, I don't know where the hope is in that. So I see them as women like me who screwed up. They made a mistake, and they were in the wrong place at the wrong time. I'm really grateful that there were things I did in my troublemaking years that I could be there. I could be in their shoes. So I think that's it, Janna. I think it's that like feeling like I am seen as a human being with value and equal that starts to change people.
Absolutely. I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. And just being seen as who you are and having that compassion and love that you have for them, and no judgments. You know, we're here to just be human. Human to human is just so, it's so important and so big. And I think sometimes in our day-to-day we lose that because we have our own agendas, our own problems, that we get so focused on ourselves. So,
you know, and so I'll tell you just kind of a couple of quick examples of, you asked how they've changed. Like they will tell you stories about how they view themselves differently. One girl sat in closing circle one day and said, I don't know what's happening to me, but this girl in my unit needed a towel and I just gave her one. And she was so surprised, because in that environment, I think you really hold the few belongings you have closely. And it was just like second nature to her to give something away to someone in need. And she just said, this is changing me. And then another story they've told us is they too have to do volunteer teaching. So they go back to their units, and they either have to teach a roommate or the women that are in their unit. And there's one guard down there who's really difficult, apparently. She's a really ornery lady. And over time, they notice her watching the yoga, watching them teach yoga. And one day recently, she came into where they were teaching yoga, and she had a tray of bottled water for them. And they about passed out. They just said, we got cop water. So wow. It just was like, it was a gesture, like they're getting through to the guards as well. It's pretty amazing.
And we laugh, and we don't mean to laugh. I think we just take things, those kinds of, you and I probably take those things for granted.
Yeah, but it was a huge deal to them. It was a gesture that they felt like she was saying to them, like, you deserve something that I have. And it was really big to them.
Wow.
They felt like it was a big breakthrough.
That is awesome. that is so great.
Yeah.
So how, you know, as far as the hope that we talk about hope, and I ask this question of all my guests, is where you're helping others find a little sliver of hope, wherever it is, because it is a rough, tough environment that they're in, survival mode. Where do you bring your hope? Where do you tap into that hope that you can then share with the world? Not just these women in the prison, but everyone that you come in contact with.
That's a great question. I feel like I was born with a really optimistic outlook. I feel like I don't know how to be otherwise than to always think that tomorrow's better than today, and there's a lot of reason to get up in the morning and get out into the world. I do have some routines in my life that fill my cup. Exercise, my own personal yoga practice, being a student really helps me, going into other people's classes and learning all I can. I have a meditation practice that really keeps me grounded and centered. Yeah, I believe that I'm part of something really big and beautiful, and I'm just a part of it, and it makes me feel purposeful. And I have great support network, really great friends and family. I think life is here for the taking for all of us.
Yeah.
And that gives me hope.
That's amazing. And I met you 10, 12 years ago, and the minute I met you, you made a profound impact on my heart and my life. And I know you don't know that, and but I wanted to tell you that there is a light and a love about you that radiates. And so it's just been a pleasure to have you here, and hopefully I can have shared that with our viewers that listen to our program. And I just think that it's so important to know that we're not defined by our past, that we can become better than maybe our past has otherwise shown. So I think that you help people realize that about themselves. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I'll just share a quote that my grandmother told me a lot when I was younger, and she was my father's mother. And she would remind me, Denise, your past doesn't define you, it prepares you. And I really think that's true.
So true. That's a great quote. Thank you.
Yeah.
Denise, thank you so much for joining us. Like I said, I have such an admiration for you, and I know that you have touched so many people in your circle, and thankfully you travel a lot for your job, and so you're reaching not only people in our valley but all over the country, and you are a light to many. And so thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you, and thank you for what you're doing. And hopefully, the people watching this today will just maybe be inspired to go to a place that might be a little painful and find that as a place of service, because it is one of the greatest gifts I've ever received in my life, is to be able to go full circle and give back to a place that was painful for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, be blessed.
Thank you.
Thank you.